Hello guys, it is me, 6321 Creations, and today we will be going over the Transit Bandit's video on stop hijacking successful transit plans and why it isn't his best. Let's move on to why I don't like it, aka the intro. The video suggests doing free buses instead of a better billion, a plan to expand the subways instead. There is one issue, however. The video boils down to, if you don't agree with free buses, you are probably classist or racist because POCs are the most frequent bus users. And looking at this, you can see the video is obviously wrong. Here is person A and person B. Person A is a middle-class person who can spend $3 on a subway. Another is a person who is working class and always has to save money. They may or may not afford a $3 subway. Person A lives in a mixed-use area where he or she doesn't need to drive. Person B lives in a residential area, always needing to drive. What the Transit Bandit is saying is in order to help Person B, we must make all buses free. This can be considered racist because some people like Person B want subway access. Additionally, the Transit Bandit in his video points out that people that are white and rich prefer subways, and people that are brown and poor prefer buses. Can we not make videos that have, like, stereotypes in them? Because I just find it pathetic that the Transit Bandit uses stereotypes in this video. Because not all brown people prefer buses, and not all white people prefer subways. Another issue is, buses in NYC are generally average at best. At their worst, they can be slow. Very slow. Much slower than walking. It's also worth noting that most bus trips facilitate subway trips. How does someone benefit from free buses if he or she has to connect to a $3 subway? Meanwhile, subways generally lead to mixed-use development, a way for transforming neighborhoods. If person B now lives in a walkable mixed-use area, he or she doesn't have to drive, which saves money and in return allows him or her to pay for the $3 subway. Also, a point that the Transit Bandit makes out is that subways take a long time to build. But there's a solution against that. In-house talent. Do that, and then suddenly it doesn't take multiple years to build something. Like in the 60s. Okay? Moving on. So in conclusion, this is why I don't like the Transit Bandit's video. At best, it's trying to make a point but kinda fails, and at its worst, it is very racist. Now, on to the reaction!
I'll start this video off by addressing the elephant in the room. No, I'm not from New York, and so my perspective isn't local.
Not from New York. It's a little bit of a red flag.
I'm much more interested in this issue as a transit nerd and planner who knows a lot about transit regardless of the city it's in.
Knows a lot about transit regardless of the city it is. You made a poor video here, and I already showed the reasons why.
I think this is a fascinating trade-off debate that can be applied to larger cities and transit systems across the United States and the world. With that out of the way,
there's barely even been a few cities have implemented free buses. And those cities have, like, for most of them, they have been ended. The only one that still hasn't ended is Luxembourg, but even then I still wouldn't consider that a city. That's a full-on country. So it's the size of a city.
Let's get started.
Wow, what cheap intro music you have there. And a cheaply animated outro too. It's just zooming in on your channel's logo.
New York recently elected a new mayor, Zoran Mamdani. In many ways, he's the opposite of countless mayors in years and decades past. One of the biggest ways is that he doesn't own a car. As such, one of the biggest campaign promises was to make all buses in the city free of charge to ride. This was a controversial move at the time, given that free buses do cost money to run, and there were concerns about overcrowding. We'll get to all of that later in the video, but first, let's talk about the free buses plan and what that would mean for New York. In the summer of 2024, CBS News reported that half of all New York City bus riders weren't paying their fares when getting on the bus.
Simple solution? Enforce the fares. If no one's paying, kick them off the bus.
There are two ways that you can choose to look at this statistic. You can decide that these people are some kind of criminals, or you can take a closer look. If half of all bus riders aren't paying fares, clearly there is some broader issue at play.
It's not a rained out pool day. It's time to dive into Panera Mac and Cheese.
Loving the goggles.
It just meals good with Panera at home.
Summer slipping by? There's still time for pool days.
In this case, it's the cost of living. New York City is an extremely expensive place
Just build more housing. Expanding the subways leads to more housing. Do that instead.
to live, and bus riders tend to be the lowest income residents of any city.
Lowest income because they mainly live in less residential areas. Simple solution, expand subways, upzone the area, and build mixed-use development. And there you go. They can walk to their destinations.
City. Paying a
And if they wanted to go out of the area, they could just simply take the subway.
few dollars every day to ride the bus may not sound like a lot, but for many it's the difference between eating lunch or going hungry. This is an immediate, pressing concern.
A lot of people in residential areas usually drive, and while there are buses, only a few people take those because they still cost $3. I do get that you're trying to do free buses instead, but let me tell you, you could just simply turn it into a mixed-use development and get people to get out of their cars and take the subway. Make them afford the subway with mixed-use development. Make them not spend money on gas.
For many New Yorkers who are struggling to keep up with the city's ever-increasing prices of rent, food, and other necessities. This is the reason Mamdani has given for his ambitious free bus plan. Immediate cost of living issues affecting large amounts of the city, and it's a valid reason. Many New Yorkers need that financial relief, and they need it now.
Now. You're thinking about now, when things in the long term provide more results. If anything, I'd go for the long term and provide the more results as possible. Not the short term, where there's some results, but not as much compared to what we could have done in the long term.
However, the free bus plan has always been controversial. At the time that it was proposed, some people called it communism, but others
Zohar Mamdani himself isn't a communist. And, even then, there are some free buses installed that are not really communist. Free buses aren't really a communist thing. But even then, should we not implement them?
such as transit planner Jared Walker called it a poor choice of resource allocation. Walker's critiques revolved around overloading already busy bus routes. By no longer charging a fare on the bus but still charging for each subway ride, many residents may feel incentivized to take the bus instead of the subway. However, this
Can I just say something? You do realize that in the free bus trial that the MTA actually did, the ridership gains, those were driven by people who decided not to walk and to take the bus because it was free. Additionally, due to the buses themselves becoming free and more people taking it, it led to overcrowding and delayed boardings, which increased dwell times. And overall, it made buses arrive later than usual.
This doesn't have to be a problem. The great beauty of buses is that they're flexible.
Flexible. I mean, I do get that they're flexible, but at the same time, they have to share a street. And while there is bus rapid transit, in an NYC case, it kind of failed.
We can move bus routes wherever we want to and modify their frequencies, spans, and geographic.
I mean, you could also do that to subways. You can modify the subway's frequencies if you wanted to. It's not that hard. Headways too. I mean, headways are frequencies. What'd you expect? I do get that subways, once they're installed, it would be expensive to regroup. At the same time, you're already serving dense corridors. You gotta be wise with your subway expansion, which the Better Billion does correct. For most of it, though. There are some critiques, like having decided to go to 158th Street and not College Point, which I'd pretty much say would be a better idea. And also the fact that, for some reason, they want to send the IBX to Astoria. But I think extending it to LaGuardia would be a better choice.
coverage very quickly. If overcrowding is truly a concern, MTA transit planners can take a new look at their bus network and reorganize routes to reduce
They ain't doing that. They're already going through a bus redesign. They're not redesigning it again for the foreseeable future.
duplication of the subway, rather using bus routes as short-distance feeder routes to bring people to and from subway stations.
Again, you get this wrong. If you're going to make free buses, or if you're going to make buses free, then why are subways still going to be $3? And not to mention, most bus trips facilitate subway rides. If a person if a person is supposed to benefit for a free bus, then why does he or she have to pay a $3 subway? Better to just expand fares instead.
Or as crosstown connections where taking the subway would be slow and inconvenient.
Slow and inconvenient. Let me just give you an example of a subway crosstown that is fast and frequent. The 7 train along 42nd Street in Manhattan. Because let me tell you, while it is true that it only has like 4 stops, it does get the job done fast. Faster than the M42.
Bus routes that fulfill these purposes, not routes that run parallel to subway lines, are currently the busiest routes in New York City, showing that the MTA
just build a subway line. If it's busy, then the demand is there for a subway.
and riders understand the purpose of the bus in the regional transit system. However, those who oppose the free bus plan haven't just sat idly. They've found what may be the only way to stop it, telling people that they can get better subway service instead. From this, the Better Billion Plan was born, created by people at the Transit Costs Project, a New York-based group focused on researching the capital cost.
If there are similar projects in Italy, Sweden, Turkey, Korea, Chile, and Spain that have worked, follow their footprint, I guess, for subway expansion.
New rail rapid transit projects. This group has its own ambitious plan for the additional tax revenues that Mamdani plans on raising for his free bus plan, namely expansion of the subway system throughout different New York City neighborhoods. However, this plan isn't nearly as transformative or
It is transformative. More housing for New York through upzoning with subway expansion. And with upzoning comes mixed-use development. I'm not joking.
impactful for as much of the city as the free bus plan would be. The subway plan is much smaller, focused mainly
Much smaller, but with more benefits. Like, let's see. There's a lot of transit deserts in Queens, namely Southeast Queens and Hillside Avenue. These would be served by the ENF respectively. Additionally, College Point is a transit desert, and so I want the 7 to go there, even though in the report it shows it going to 168th Street. Additionally, LaGuardia needs rail service. Extend the IBX there, and have the N and W go to terminals B and C, and the IBX can go to Terminal A. Additionally, Bronx doesn't have a crosstown line. Build a crosstown line. Extend the 6 to Co-op City, which, despite being the largest co-op development in the world, doesn't have a subway. And Southeast Brooklyn is a transit desert. Build the Utica Avenue line. It ain't that hard. Additionally, Queens Link, which is supposed to serve one of the biggest transit deserts in NYC, and it's why we need it now. No way with Queensway, by the way. And so, yeah, do this instead.
Extending the popular 2nd Avenue subway, as well as smaller.
I do think that expanding 2nd Avenue would be a really cool idea, having it go to Brooklyn and Queens, considering it's only really supposed to serve Manhattan. There was also a provision for a Bronx expansion, but that never really came to fruition. Hopefully they do that one day.
Extensions and branches elsewhere in the city. This is because trains are expensive to build.
Expensive to build. Like I said earlier, do in-house talent, and then suddenly it doesn't take like a long time, and it isn't expensive to build compared to the 60s when they were, and today when they're still hiring contractors. Just get in-house talent. It ain't that hard.
Especially in New York, and especially if they happen to be.
The only reason why 2nd Avenue subway became the most expensive wasn't because of the MTA just inflating the price over time. It was because of the political leaders themselves not wanting to, keep it going. It's a political mayhem in terms of 2nd Avenue subway. It's not the MTA's fault. What they could have done, though, is get in-house talent to do it instead and not be that expensive. But since they didn't do in-house talent back in the day, welp, it became more expensive over time. Just get in-house talent. It isn't that hard.
Called the Second Avenue Subway. These subway expansion plans completely leave out places like Staten Island and most of Brooklyn.
I mean, most of Brooklyn, there's southeast Brooklyn. That's a transit desert. Have the Hijacking Avenue line built and have the new have the Second Avenue line going to Brooklyn. The only reason why Staten Island it really isn't there is because, like, who even thinks Staten Island is a place anyway? And even then, there are a few proposals to build subways in Staten Island, namely expansions of the YAR, new Staten Island Railway branches, etc. So, yeah.
These places would see minimal, if any.
And even then, Staten Island has just become suburban. It's much more suburban. The outer boroughs, they do have some suburban parts, but are still decently walkable. But still are transit deserts. If anything, if we wanted to help Staten Island, it would take much more longer, which the Better Billion just doesn't want to do. You do get that the Better Billion is trying to achieve long-term, but they don't want to do long-term. I think long-term is the perfect balance.
Benefit from the subway plan, even though the free bus plan would make their buses just as free as everyone else's.
Just as free as everyone else. Hold on.
From the subway plan and most of Brooklyn. These places would see minimal, if any, benefit from the subway plan, even though the free bus plan would make their buses.
Like I said, if the Better Billion could have done this, extended to Staten Island. And even if that isn't in the report, I would still be happy to look to a Staten Island extension. Because let me tell you, Staten Island is a big no-no when it comes to transit. Like, they're mostly Republican. They're the most Republican place. And Republicans usually oppose transit. Additionally, it's much more suburban, so there's going to be more NIMBYs there. And so, like, in general, you want to serve the major transit deserts first. And then you want to do Staten Island later. As for the Better Billion, they're trying to achieve long-term goals, but not long-term goals.
It's just as everyone else's. Additionally,
I'm gonna have to say, but I also propose improving buses as well alongside the subways. Just don't make a subpar service free. Improve both subways and buses. It ain't that hard.
The so-called Better Billion plan has some wonky math. I looked through the methodology of their plan and could never find a mention of how they calculated how much money free buses will cost the city. Their assumption is that free buses will cost approximately $1 billion a year, even though Mayor Mamdani states it would only cost about $800 million.
Let's find that out. How much money do free buses at my seat cost? It goes into the 1 billion zone. Yeah, make some sense. Their primary estimate is 1.1 billion. Yes. You're wrong, Transit Bandit. It's only lower if it's like the low estimate. But like the standard estimate, 1.1 billion.
Which is more in line with the total current fare revenue of the bus system. This fare revenue only covers about 15% of the bus system's operating cost, and also has to cover the cost of owning and maintaining a bus fare.
You know, let me just give you some recap on free buses. Because let me tell you, I actually wrote an argumentative essay on why they should not be built, and there's actually good reasons. Okay, so, where is it? This. So, large cities that do free transit offer lots of cautionary tales. In the 1970s, Denver limited fares for its buses during the oil crisis. While it was true that ridership went up, buses became overcrowded, and not to mention, vandalism spiked, and the fares returned after 2 years. But then in Kansas City, they operated America's largest fare-free program, but it struggled with operational challenges, and they later reinstated the fares. As it stands, I'd probably not do free buses.
collection system, which would be free if there were no bus fares.
Ready? Here we go. Drop off, crust off, lunchbox, mom rocks, give a little Sara Lee love.
We all know the key to successful AI pilots is
making them work.
It's not making them work for all your departments.
$800 million a year means that subway construction would move slowly, and the plan
Move slowly? Like I said earlier, in-house talent makes it faster and cheaper.
acknowledges this, laying out the subway improvements and expansions over the next
40-year period. That's perfect, actually. We want to focus towards the long-term goals, whether there are challenges or not. I wouldn't mind some challenges, but like, with in-house talent, they could definitely get the job done faster.
40 years. What the plan fails to mention, however, is that New York subway expansions are famously difficult to build.
Famously difficult. You know why they're famously difficult? Because the MTA never considers in-house talent. Well, they have been using some in-house talent nowadays. They're still hiring contractors. And let me tell you, they gotta eventually do in-house talent.
Projects like the 2nd Avenue subway have
Like I said earlier, the only reason why 2nd Avenue kept being delayed was because of political funding and political will. Eventually, it kept declining, but now it's back up.
gone far over budget and have been delivered years late.
Another reason why it's far over budget was because the MTA wasn't doing in-house talent yet. In-house talent would be revolutionary for the MTA, because then they wouldn't have to hire contractors and would be able to do the construction on their own.
This isn't to say that they're not important and well-appreciated projects once they're open, but subways are expensive and slow to build.
Incorrect. Like I literally just said, in-house talent.
Especially through already well-established and high-density urban centers. So in 40 years, who knows if we'll even see half of the Better Billion subway map actually built and running.
Let me tell you, if they just get in-house talent and actually got decent people to fund it, then I'm pretty sure we can get it done.
Next, let's talk about the two modes of transit, subways and buses. MTA's CEO, when asked about the free buses plan, said why is the bus the whole focus? But honestly, he's missing the point, because the bus has never really been the focus at all. In New York, like
I think we're getting to the part where he uses the stereotypes.
most large cities, the bus network doesn't do what the subways do. Don't get me wrong, subways are great, but they have their shortcomings, namely that they're expensive and can't provide the
I mean, I guess that they're more expensive than buses, but are able to achieve high ridership and allow for upzoning and mixed-use development, and can save money for people.
level coverage that buses do. And
There's a lot of subways that go into more neighborhood-like areas, like Forest Hills or Jamaica. You think that's not enough?
quite frankly, focusing your resources and energy on the subway alone is a little bit classist.
Okay, we're definitely getting to the stereotypes.
Especially in New York, many of the people who rely on the bus rather than the subway are low income and more likely
Low income! There we go! He's racist. He's classist. We're not the ones being racist or classist. Like I literally just said before, maybe person B wants to take a subway, but they don't have access. Better give person B the access. Additionally, where was it? Oh, damn it. So, the video boils down, if you don't agree with free buses, you are classist or racist, because BOs are the most frequent bus users. But since I literally used an example where person B lives in a residential area and always used to drive, he or she, if she doesn't want to drive, must do a bus. But buses are $3 and are subpar at best. Free buses don't do anything. They only make the buses free, but if the person B is transferring to a $3 subway, how does that benefit him or her? Just expand the subways, upzone the area around subway stations, and then build mixed-use development, and then all of a sudden, person B doesn't need to drive, and can simply save money and afford the $3 subway. There you have it.
to be people of color because of gentrification and other effects pushing people out of desirable subway-accessible neighborhoods.
Gentrification. What a lame excuse. I literally just said person B wants better transit access with subways, and to make it so that he or she lives in an area that doesn't which doesn't have the walkable necessities which mixed-use developments do have. If gentrification works out for person B, he or she would stay. I do get that some people don't like their new surroundings, but then if they actually realize the benefits, they should be staying. So, in all honesty, I do get that Forest Hills has gentrified, but like at the same time, it allows for mixed-use development, allows for like working class people to save money by not having to drive everywhere. And in general, just works for person B. Because person B lives in a residential area, always need to drive, but since he or she has to keep paying bus fares, but has to keep driving most of the time, then he or she is gonna lose more money. But if a subway line is built, upzoning happens, and mixed-use development gets built, then person B would be able to save money by not having to drive and pay for gas, or pay for a mechanic if his or her car goes wrong. But essentially, then he would be able to then he or she would be able to afford a $3 subway, and actually walk most of the time. So that's how person B saves money.
Large portions of the city, including most of Staten Island, but also smaller areas and crosstown corridors elsewhere, rely entirely on buses rather than the subway to get around.
Like I said, Better Billion doesn't do Staten Island because of the risks of doing Staten Island. However, there are other proposals for a Staten Island subway. Build those along with the Better Billion, and then there you go.
Buses are much more of a lifeline than subways and carry...
Subways are equally as a lifeline as buses are. They're able to carry much more people, and therefore can handle more people. Buses can only carry so much people, whereas subways can do more. And if there's demand for rail, better start building the rail, because let me tell you, if there's a bus line that's crowded in an area, there's likely demand for subways there.
Millions every day. So they should be the focus when talking about transit in New York City. Speaking of affordability, I do understand that subways will drive more housing development and eventually help to bring down housing prices in New York City. But to me, this argument also comes across a little tone-deaf. There are countless New Yorkers and residents in large cities across the country yearning for lower costs of living right now.
They can wait. They can wait. They can wait. And the Better Billion is actually set up in phases. So an area would receive better access now, and then another area would receive better access later. There you have it.
They're worried about paying the bills today, not in 20 years when housing prices are theoretically lower, but today.
Still, much more cheaper if it's lower, if we actually do Better Billion. Okay? It's not that hard.
When they still have to pay high rents, and shovels for new subways are far from hitting the ground.
Like I said, just do faster on environmental review and design, and then do in-house talent to make it not be that expensive and long.
And for those pushing for the Better Billion plan, I'd ask you to examine your motives. If you feel uncomfortable providing free bus rides to mostly black and brown...
Stereotypes again. Now, what if person B was black but still wanted subway access, and what if person A was white but wanted better bus access? You got the complete opposite of what he's saying. Why? Like, look at this comment. I really dislike the Transit Bandit video because much of the video essentially boils down to, if you don't agree with free buses, you are probably classist and maybe a little racist because POCs are the most frequent bus users. Why can't we have policy conversations without weird and inaccurate moralizing? And in terms of the Transit Bandit, he's doing weird and inaccurate moralizing here.
Income residents, you may need to rethink your own personal biases.
No, you need to rethink your own personal
and
biases.
viewpoints of the world.
Bounty, the quicker picker-upper, America's #1 trusted paper towel.
New Greenie's occupied twists help dogs stay calm. Even this one, whose owner
The Better Billion plan is concerning to me because it doesn't really
Shouldn't be if you're a transit nerd and actually read the
mention
facts.
buses at all. It includes no mentions of bus lanes, bus rapid transit, or
The big focus of the Better Billion is to expand subways. Bus rapid transit does have benefits and does speed up buses, but subways will always beat out buses in terms of speed. Bus rapid transit will never beat out a subway in terms of speed.
other ways to improve mobility for the millions of New Yorkers who rely on the bus network rather than on the subway system.
And there's millions that want to rely on the subway network but are forced to take buses.
Free buses are a fast and effective win for New York City.
They only provide short-term benefits. Eventually they're going to get old. Expand the subways now, and they'll last a long time.
We know that free buses work, as most cities across the United States and the world that have implemented them have seen great results. One of the quickest transit agencies to recover ridership from the COVID-19 pandemic operates in Richmond, Virginia, and has seen much of this recovery thanks to not reinstating the fares they charged prior to the pandemic.
But you know what agency did reinstate the fares? Kansas City, because they made their public transit system free. But due to factors I literally just said before, if not, I'll bring them back up right now. Like, let's see. Kansas City, in Kansas City, they operated America's largest fare-free program, but since it struggled with operational challenges, they later reinstated the fares. And when in the 1970s, Denver limited fares for its buses during the oil crisis. While ridership did go up, buses became overcrowded and vandalism spiked. That's right, vandalism. Do we want vandalism? Do we want vandalists ruining our buses? No. We don't want the buses to become the subway from the 1970s.
In my home state of Washington, intercity transit went fare-free right before the pandemic in 2020.
That's intercity transit, not local transit.
And saw a 20% increase in ridership in just the first month. And increased ridership is a good thing. The more people we have riding buses, the more demand there is for service, and
The only reason why ridership went up for MTA buses because the free fares incentivized people to not walk. Do you want to know how much people stopped driving cars and switched to buses? Only 11% out of 12% new riders. Additionally, 45% of riders likely would have walked or simply skipped the trip if fares remained. Which I know sounds like a good thing, but like, at the same time, out of 12% of the new riders, only 11% switched from cars and taxis. Do you know what the 1% did? They switched from walking, that's why. Or they could have switched to subways, but made their commutes longer. And the MTA actually did do a fare-free experience in 2023 to 2024, but was deemed a failure. Why? It was because the speeds of buses did not improve, and only 12% of riders were new to the system. Another 45% of riders likely would have walked or simply skipped the trip if fares remained. Out of the 12% of new riders, only 11% switched from cars and taxis. Yep. Additionally, I feel like free buses are best for systems that have low fare box recovery and minimum congestion, as well as alternative funding sources can thrive with fare-free buses. But since New York doesn't fit in this category, they're not able to absorb the so-called 800 million losses, or actually 1 billion in losses from revenue without either raising taxes, which require state approval, and that Kathy Hochul won't provide or slash service for that. And service cuts would be considered self-defeating, as low service quality is what keeps potential riders in cars. So instead of making buses free and not fixing the quality, fix the quality.
The more riding the bus is woven into the culture of
And if you were to see the demand for the subways, I'm pretty sure that would be more than than new riders that ridden the bus.
the city. And if some routes get crowded, I say let it happen.
No. Overcrowding is not a good thing, because if there's a lot of people on the bus, that incentivizes people to go to the next one. And who knows how crowded that bus can be. Build subways because they can handle more people.
Crowded buses are the biggest indication of a successful transit.
Biggest indication. Let me tell you, got that wrong. Because while it is true that overcrowding may sound like a success factor, really, it's just meaning that demand for subways are right there.
System and a need for more transit funding, and have been extremely successful in securing better funding for transit in cities like Vancouver.
That's Vancouver, by the way. Vancouver, the only reason why their buses are free is simply due to the fact that they wanted to incentivize people. But that's a Vancouver case, not a New York City case.
Saved the bus from a massive fiscal cliff.
By the way, Governor Kathy Hochul won't provide or slash service elsewhere. And the MTA could lose $1 billion in funding.
Finally, the debate about whether this additional tax revenue should go towards buses or subways is a false dichotomy.
False
There is
dichotomy.
no law saying that free buses mean the subway will never be expanded again. However, free buses are
like I'm saying, free buses won't work. So instead of doing that, expand the subways. If we expand the subways now, then we're going to see long-term benefits. But if you want to do free buses now, they'll only have mixed benefits at best, and then the MTA is going to make a huge mistake, and that could prevent from subway expansion. So let me tell you, and how does it prevent subway expansion? Well, they can lose money in order to actually build those subway expansions. And what if the governor won't provide the money? MTA can't expand the subways, so unfortunately they can't do that, because they already spent their money on free buses, and it didn't work.
fast win that can be implemented in the near future.
Fast win. The only reason most people choose fast wins is to get benefits in now, but we should be getting benefits in the long term. Benefits that can last a longer time.
Improving the quality of life for millions of New Yorkers struggling to make ends meet in a growing city. And while the subway is great, and I love it, a 40-year-long plan that leaves out millions of residents isn't nearly as transformative as making
Vice versa, actually. Much more transformative than free buses. You're keeping buses subpar and only making them free, which does not even improve the service quality. If you want to get people out of their cars, improve the buses' service quality, or expand the subways and upzone the area around subway stations and make it mixed-use development.
bus free right now. There's a great video by the channel Radical Planning talking more about the false funding dichotomy arguments made against the free bus plan.
And there's videos on why free buses won't work. And I'm going to show you in the Joint Transit Association's video on it, because he made a video on the Better Billion and why it's better than free buses and why it should be funded. Let me just YouTube, please load.
Here's what comes off the bold strawberry.
So like, I don't think Urban Man has it up, but Joint Transit Association has the video up. And as you can see, Scott from Urban Man made a video about this. Now let me find that. Where is it? This! Urban Man and NY Railfan. I'm pretty sure NY Railfan still has it. Let me see. NY Railfan. No. Yeah, it's still there. Yeah, it's gone as well. Now, who can be responsible for taking it down? Maybe the Transit Bandit brainwashed him, but even then, the Joint Transit Association does bring up good points and counterpoints and counterclaims to what Transit Bandit is saying.
Which I'd recommend checking out as well. There's always a way to find more money to pay for these subway expansions, which absolutely should happen, but we don't need to hijack a plan that will bring massive improvements in a...
It won't. Better to hijack a plan that won't bring massive improvements in favor of one that will. And even then, I feel like in terms of buses, we should only be improving the service and quality of them, not making them free.
Affordability right now. Speaking of hijacking, this kind of hijacking of major projects that can help bring mobility to the masses is not a new problem, and is something that every city is vulnerable to. I read about one of these stories in the book Better Buses, Better Cities, which I'd highly recommend checking out if you're interested in these kinds of topics. In 2018, Nashville voters were asked to decide on a tax increase measure to fund additional transit service. It would have been a transformative plan, with light rail, bus rapid transit, and major increases in the levels of bus service throughout the city. However, the measure never passed, mostly
because Nashville is Republican. That's
because of a competing proposal that promised double-decker highways and self-charging autonomous buses. Unsurprisingly, the number of self-driving buses in Nashville today is 0, and their transit service hasn't been able to achieve the bold vision set forth in 2018.
You're only doing that because,
because of this distraction. I worry that alternative proposals like the Better Billion will derail transit from its path.
It won't. They already set up a fully functional plan, and it will not derail free buses. And even then, free buses are stupid within themselves. Don't do free buses.
Improving the mobility and lives of everyday people. Instead, the Better Billion plays into modal preference and politics, and seems to be geared towards the wealthier, whiter demographic.
It is not, because like I said, there are people, especially blacks and people of color, that want subway access, and you're using weird and inaccurate moral
graphics who may ride a train but may not choose to ride the bus. In a city and country where affordability has become more and more of a pressing issue with no end in sight, and where minority...
And even then, there's still cheaper neighborhoods in NYC, like Forest Hills, Middle Village,
populations are being abused more than ever. Pandering to this better-off demographic is bad optics at best.
And, other examples are, Mosholu Parkway. Those are cheaper. There's still some decently cheap neighborhoods that have good subway access. And if anything, there's demand right there. There's already good demand.
In conclusion, there's a false dichotomy
there is no false dichotomy
being presented here. Instead of hijacking much-needed funds that will go towards the New Yorkers most in need of a break right now, we should talk about how we spend our government budgets at the municipal, state, and federal levels. The state government of New York spends nearly $7 billion a year on expanding and maintaining roads, highways, and bridges. Diverting just 15% of that budget would fund the Better Billion plan, while leaving Mamdani's funds set aside for free buses available to serve the city's millions of daily bus riders.
Let me tell you, free buses, like I said, won't work. And what he could do instead is improve the quality and speed of the buses. But even then, subways are faster, and a bus rapid transit can only carry so much people, whereas subways can handle much more. Especially subways that include open gangways, like the G train, even though some trains on the G train are closed gangways.
And instead take
with the Better Billion, we're not making transit messier, we're making it better.
The wins when we can. Free buses are a net positive for just about everyone. And
they're not a net positive, they're a net negative. The MTA did a trial on this and it failed, mind you.
We should let New York have this near-term win that will improve mobility and affordability for all.
And then they won't get upzoning and mixed-use development, which does lead to more affordability. Wow, honestly pathetic. After watching this video, I want to throw up. No joke. In fact, let me do that right now. Okay, so if any of y'all are watching this video, Please do not watch the Transit Bandits video. It is very obnoxious. Anyways, I'm 6v21 Creations, and I'm signing off.